my formative years were in Japan, a very polite society. And then even when we moved back to the United States, we practice a Japanese sect of Buddhism is what we follow. So the Japanese culture is very ingrained in my family. So we all have always had a filter on what we say because it's important to be polite. It's important to, I would say be thoughtful, but really it's seem thoughtful. And so I just have created this very strong filter over the last 40 years that, I always think before I say something. And then even then, it's not just giving myself space so I don't blurt out something I'll regret. There's another filter beyond that where I'm like, oh, this is what I really want to say, but this is what I'm going to say because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to be rude. I want them to save face, right? So
it's interesting because you talk about a filter, but what you're really talking about is just, it's a lie.
I know you like to call it that.
That's what it is. Like when you have a thought,
yeah,
and then you think to yourself, I can't say that thought. Instead, I must say this other thought. Then you're lying about what you're actually thinking. And I love that this came from Japan. I love that you're introducing this as like your filter from Japanese society, because the Japanese absolutely have a reputation of being polite and proper and organized. They're a bunch of biased, lying assholes sometimes, and it's true. They're racist. Only Japanese people count in the eyes of Japanese, right? Everybody else is a second-class citizen. And that's why they're running into their own issues in their country, right? That's why they have a declining population and they don't allow immigration. And you have to jump through 12 bureaucratic hoops if you're going to get Japanese residency.
Yeah.
It's like the polar opposite of the United States, which is hilarious considering how close we are as allies. Right? Yeah. Everybody looks at them and thinks they're a democracy and they're this and they're that and they're a first world like leader. They actually are racist. It's codified in law, their racism. Right? And it's just amazing to me. So, and you're right, they have this veil of propriety, but they drink all night, they smoke all the time, they're sexual freaks.
They have a high suicide rate.
They have a high suicide rate because the pressure that's on every Japanese adolescent to exceed the expectation of their parents is so high that they just, death is easier for a lot of them, right? You can see how that culture begot samurais and how that culture begot kamikaze pilots. You can see it in like their legacy. That said, I still love Japan.
Yeah.
Amazing place. Fantastic people to be around. As long as you accept that whoever's looking at you is lying to you. What's your dad call it?
Oh, the grin fuck. Yeah.
Explain to us the Joel Bustamante description of the Japanese grin fuck.
No, it's he actually applies that term to Chinese because the Japanese aren't the only culture where it's important to save face. Right? There are multiple cultures in the world where it's important to save face. You don't want to say something that's going to embarrass somebody or embarrass you. And so you say something else with a smile. And so my dad calls it the grin fuck, where like as they are stabbing you in the back doing something, they're smiling and nodding in your face and placating you. So I do think it's interesting that there these cultures out there. I still have to say, I prefer the cultures that lie to my face. I would rather have you be polite than...
But lie.
But lie, right? Because there's an understanding that they are being polite. Like if you understand the culture, you know that they are being polite. So... you just have to figure out how to navigate those things. I would much rather have that than have somebody be just straight up rude to my face. Because I think the problem, I'm reading all these Star Trek books now, and it's not like, we're not like Vulcans who say what we mean in a logical manner. And so it makes sense, right? Like I'm being honest with you and it doesn't hurt your feelings because it's the logical thing to say and do.
And you are a logical driven person too.
Right.
Because you're Vulcan to Vulcan.
Right. You're Vulcan to Vulcan, right? You're so like my logic, your logic, they meet. Nobody gets upset. That's not how it works in the human world, right? Humans, when they say something, there's usually an emotion behind it. So if somebody says something rude to you, there's usually some kind of nasty emotion behind it as well that's being emanated, right? That energy is being pushed towards you. At least if somebody is polite to me, I don't have to deal with all that negative energy. As an introvert, it's really like powerful, the energy that people send to you. So, you know, I would rather be in a society where I have to try to read between the lines and very diplomatically try to get to understand what that person is really saying.
That sounds like a painful society. How much energy is wasted? Seriously, yeah. If I got to put a vote in the Vulcan court, then I'm putting a vote in the Vulcan court right now. Because it's interesting. We're talking introvert, extrovert. Because I lean on the extrovert side. I certainly have introvert tendencies. You also have extrovert tendencies.
Yeah.
But my point is just, if someone's going to lie to my face, it's so awkward because you can see them lying to your face.
Yeah.
And you know that they don't, like, I mean, like a Japanese person who's giving you the last piece of food, giving you their whole plate of food. And they're like, I want you to have this. You're like, you don't want me to have that.
Right.
Like, this is your culture, your society, your social pressure, your norms. It's a beautiful thing, but just you actually want to eat this, so you eat it. So then you push it back to them, and then they push it back to you, and then you push it back to them, and then you. Oh my god! You
find that exhausting, huh?
There's nothing beautiful about that. It's just two people not eating. What's the point of that, right? What's the point of that?
Better than somebody being like, "Sorry about your luck. There's nothing left."
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what
it could, because then maybe eventually you'll get to like, why don't we split the meal and then you both get to eat?
Is that the goal? So why don't we just start with that?
That's a good question. Because society isn't quite there yet.
If you like this short clip, make sure you click here to see the next clip or here to see the full podcast episode.